The Cordyceps infection from the Last of Us franchise is one of the most terrifying apocalyptic events in TV history. In today's video, we'll do a deep dive into the lore of the Last of Us video games and TV series to explain the 6 forms of infected in the franchise. The infection typically begins when a live human is exposed to the fungus through physical contact with the infected, most often in the form of being bitten by them. However, in the advanced stages of the infection, some specimens release airborne spores that can infect anyone who inhales them. One terrifying stage that we'll cover later in this video is even capable of launching spores containing acid and pus at its targets as well, but before that, let's take a look at the first stage of infection, runners. Victims of the cordyceps brain fungus usually enter this stage about 2 days after the infection. As the name suggests, runners are characterized by the way they dash toward their targets, viciously hunting down animals and human survivors alike. Unlike other forms of infected, runners are fast and agile as the fungus has not yet overgrown the host body. They also appear to be irritable and hostile, showing the signs of the fungus's impact on their brains. However, the terrifying thing about runners is that they might still maintain their sense of self. Their movements are erratic, and some of them even hesitate before attacking, meaning that many runners are probably killing against their own will. Imagine being trapped inside your own mind and being forced to watch as your body murders and devours the ones you love. That's the torment a runner goes through. These infected also typically move in groups, choosing to swarm their targets and attack as a pack. Runners probably use this strategy because they're physically weaker than even a normal human. Think about it. Their brains are in turmoil, their eyesight is hindered by the fungus, and their bodies are on the verge of falling apart. As a result, runners are really vulnerable and can be killed by strangling and other forms of physical violence. Despite still retaining their eyesight, they struggle to make use of it, and survivors can easily slip away or ambush lone runners. Here's where things get complicated. Anywhere between 2 weeks to a month after infection, the fungus sprouts out of the victim's head and covers one eye, turning them into a stalker. As a response to partially losing their vision, stalkers develop a form of pseudo-echolocation by making a dull croaking sound which alerts you to their presence. This stage is set apart from runners because they prefer to hide, track down, and ambush their prey. Due to their preference for stealth, stalkers often lurk in the shadows or hide in dark areas like sewers, basements, and abandoned subway areas. In the event that you come across a lone stalker out in the open, it will probably back off and hide in the shadows. However, any indication of aggression, like an explosion or a sudden movement, will make them panic and attack. Stalkers become more aggressive when they are in large groups, as it becomes extremely difficult to directly engage with them. One wrong move and you risk being surrounded and overpowered. This is because they still retain the speed and agility of runners while also possessing vision in one eye. Also, due to the infection reinforcing their body, stalkers are about as strong as a fit human and are serious threats in hand-to-hand combat. Because of this, survivors are advised to use shotguns, explosives, or incendiary weapons against stalkers, or attack them with heavy projectiles like bricks before direct confrontation. Unlike with runners, stealth is also not an option against stalkers as they prefer darker environments and have better situational awareness. If you feel like things are getting hopeless now, our final stage will truly push you to the depths of despair. Let's stick with the order of infection and look at the third stage, clickers. Prolonged exposure to the cordyceps infection exceeding a year has now led to these humans' bodies being taken over completely by the fungus. The fungus has exploded out of their brains, and the clickers' faces have been completely split open and scarred by the outgrowth. Their entire skin is covered in scales and fungal growths. Since their eyes have been destroyed by the infection, clickers are completely blind and are named after the clicking sound they emit to use a crude type of echolocation. However, the infection also grants the clicker power as the fungal crown on its head acts like a shield, protecting the brain from attacks. Even a headshot from a revolver bullet will not put down a clicker, only breaking off pieces of the fungal plates. This stage is far stronger than the average human and can overwhelm all except for the strongest survivors. They are also more persistent, spending more time in an area to track down any humans it might have missed. As if strength and persistence weren't enough, clickers gain an increase in aggression as well. When provoked, it enters a berserk mode, flailing its arms and attacking indiscriminately. Your only chance of survival is to unload multiple rounds into the clicker, firing until you're certain it's dead. But the nightmare doesn't end there. After years of the infection, the Cordyceps fungus transforms its victims into something far more terrifying: bloaters. These former humans represent the traditional fourth stage of infection, developing in dry environments where the fungus has had time to completely envelop and reinforce the host's body. The fungal growth on bloaters is so extensive that it forms a thick plating across their entire form. This natural armor makes them incredibly difficult to kill, often requiring multiple rounds from weapons like shotguns and hunting rifles. The bloater's critical weakness is fire, as a flamethrower blast can char its armor, making it brittle and vulnerable to low-power weapons. Their massive size and bulk means they move slowly, but don't mistake this for weakness. No human is as strong as a bloater, and getting caught in its grasp will only end in a very grisly death. What makes bloaters truly horrifying is their ranged attack capability. These monstrosities carry bright mycotoxin pouches that they can tear off and hurl at their targets. When these projectiles explode, they create toxic clouds of spores that burn flesh and obscure vision, causing continuous damage to anyone caught within the toxic cloud. Remember how I specifically said that bloaters develop in dry environments? This is because the climate itself can shape how the infection develops, leading to our next equally terrifying variant, shamblers. Shamblers are an alternate fourth stage of infection that develop when infected humans spend extended periods in wet, humid environments rather than the dry conditions that create bloaters. The constant exposure to moisture fundamentally changes how the cordyceps fungus grows and adapts. Shamblers lack the thick armored plating that bloaters have, and their limbs and torsos are fleshier in appearance. However, in this stage of infection, their heads and torsos swell massively with dozens of pus-filled spores, making them walking chemical weapons. These pustules release a gaseous acid that can burn through exposed flesh with frightening efficiency. While bloaters have only a few toxic pouches to throw at you, the shambler's entire bulk seems to be filled with toxin, making it nearly impossible to engage in close combat. Like bloaters, shamblers move slowly but possess incredible strength. However, their speed and power are both less than a bloater's, potentially due to being weakened by the wet and humid conditions they grew in. Just like with a bloater, the best weapons to take down a shambler is fire, and they are especially vulnerable to flamethrowers and Molotov cocktails. Furthermore, since they lack any armor plating, they can also be damaged through precision attacks with edged weapons and revolvers. But in the deepest, darkest corners of the infected world, there is a stage even more terrifying than bloaters and shamblers. For a final stage, we have an unholy amalgamation of everything we've seen so far: the Rat King. If you thought the previous stages were the stuff of nightmares, prepare yourself for something that defies all logic and sanity. The Rat King isn't technically a natural progression of infection, but rather the result of several stalkers, clickers, and a bloater becoming fused together through decades of cordyceps growth in confined spaces. The fungus literally welds these infected together, creating a writhing mass of limbs, mouths, and fungal growths that move as one terrifying entity. The only Rat King we've encountered so far was found in the basement of the Seattle hospital, and it could potentially include patient 0 of the cordyceps infection as well. The Rat King possesses traits of all its component parts: the agility of runners, the aggression of clickers, and the brute strength and spore attacks of bloaters, all amplified to nightmarish proportions. But perhaps the most terrifying aspect of the Rat King is its unpredictability. During combat, individual infected can break free from the main mass and attack independently, meaning survivors must simultaneously battle the main creature while fending off newly separated stalkers or clickers. The separated bodies may also possess abilities of other forms. For example, we see one detached stalker being able to throw mycotoxin pouches just like a bloater. In this form, the infected is even more durable than a bloater, being able to charge through heavy artillery rounds, flamethrower blasts, and even bombs. It can also emit a toxic fume like a shambler, meaning that you have to take down the Rat King without even getting too close. The Rat King represents the ultimate evolution of the cordyceps infection, a fusion of horror that combines the worst aspects of every infected stage into a single, unstoppable nightmare. Encountering one is considered a death sentence, as few survivors have lived to tell the tale of facing this abomination. And there you have it, the 6 forms of infected that make The Last of Us one of the most terrifying universes ever created. Which infected form did you find the most terrifying? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the Last of Us franchise.